Hello and welcome again to one of our QTAC real-time information videos. Now, this video will take you through a flowchart which helps you in setting up and starting RTI submissions in QTAC 1314. Now, you can use this flowchart to help you through setting up and submitting of RTI for the first time. And you can see the flowchart on the right hand side. Now, the 5 steps will be covered in detail and explained in this video. Now, the initial setup and first submission that you'll do will onboard your company or companies with HMRC. So how this onboarding is submitted depends on the number of employees in each company. Now, we've also done some other videos which will help you understand how to set your user options, as well as submitting things like an EPS, which is an employer payment summary. Steps 1 and 2. Now, step 1. Have you run the RTI data check report, and do you have all the required employee information? Now, if yes, you can move on to step 2. And if no, you will need to run this report, which you can find in the payroll under Reports, Employee, and then RTI Data Check. And this report will show you any employees that are missing data that is needed to be able to submit RTI to HMRC. Now, you will need to amend or get this information from your employees before you'll be able to submit RTI to HMRC. Step 2. Have you set your user options? Now, the user options will determine how you want to submit your RTI, FPS and EPS submissions. If you have, you can move on to step 3. And if you haven't, you'll need to go and set your user options, which you can find on the main screen of the payroll to the right of the company name, right next to the new employee button. Now, the user options screen and its settings for RTI are covered in another video in greater detail, so please watch that video if you need to know anything more about this user options screen and what it means for submitting RTI. Steps 3, 4 and 5. Now, step 3. Do you have less than 250 employees in this company? Now, if yes, you can move on to step 4. Now, if no, you'll need to submit an EAS, which is an employer alignment submission. Now, this EAS informs HMRC of the active employees in the company. You can submit an EAS by going into File by Internet, Submit to HMRC. Step 4. Have you paid and closed your employees for the first pay period? Now, if yes, you can go on to step 5. And if no, then you'll need to make sure you've paid and closed your employees for the first week or month, or whatever period is the first of the year, because employees must be closed for the pay period to be able to submit an FPS submission. Step 5. Submit your FPS. Now, how you submit your FPS depends on the user options you have set earlier in step 2. Now, you can either print or print preview your payslips, or you can manually submit the FPS from under File by Internet, Submit to HMRC in the payroll. Now, the symbol in the orange box on the right hand side will show up next to employees' names once you have successfully submitted an FPS for them. When you have submitted the EAS, if needed, and the FPS, it means that RTI is now set up and the first submissions have been sent. In summary, and this whole process can be used to set up and submit the RTI EAS, if required, and the first FPS. And you will need to run the RTI data check report, because you may need to get some employee data together before you can submit RTI to HMRC in the payroll software. You'll need to set your user options, because this will determine how you want to submit your RTI submissions. And remember, a separate video can be found giving in-depth detail on setting your user options. If you have less than 250 employees in a company, then the first FPS submission you do will onboard you for RTI with HMRC. If you have 250 employees or more in a company, then you will need to submit an EAS to onboard you for RTI with HMRC. Now, an FPS must be submitted each time you pay your employees, be that weekly or monthly, however they're paid. And also, at the end of each month or quarter, depending on how you pay HMRC, you may need to submit an EPS, or an employer payment summary. Now, a separate video can be found on giving you some in-depth detail on why and how to submit an EPS in the payroll. Now, that concludes our video on setting up and submitting RTI for the first time. Now, please remember to check out some of our other videos on our YouTube channel, which will give you some help and guidance into RTI.